Dr. Miller, another video in the series of set and repetition schemes or strategies. In this case, it's wave training. Wave training. If you haven't had a chance, go check out the other videos in this series on a variety of myo reps. We've talked about contrast sets. I can't remember what else. Drop sets. So different ways to configure set and repetition strategies in order to produce some sort of result, whether that's strength goals, hypertrophy goals, whatever it may be, or both. If you haven't already, by the way, subscribe to my channel, like this video after taking a look at it, and of course leave a comment if you have one. Okay, so let's talk about wave training. So the premise of wave training is, and I put my 4 points for this particular type of training is, what is the goal? Like when we do these different types of strategies, what's the point? And there's not a ton of research, but a fair amount of research, like 4 or 5 studies that, flat loading may be just as good as all these different types of things that we're trying to do. And while that may be supported, I think I'm going to skip down to number 4 here. And I said this in the last video, is don't underestimate the power of engagement into the program. Don't underestimate the power of wanting to do something different. We know that those of you who've been training for a while or you're coaching, that can be, if somebody comes in and sees 4x3 all the time. Now, some people can do that, but for many, it's not as engaging if I did the same amount of volume load, potentially, or load volume, but spread it out over a wave. Okay. So, some of this, these are advanced methods, certainly, but when you look at these, it's like, well, is this really making any difference compared to the other? Well, the engagement factor alone could be worth it, be worth the try. Okay. So I provided a general, kind of wave here. So you might do 75, and you could this is just one way to do this, but you could flatten out all the reps that doubles or whatever it may be. And I will mention one thing with waves that we do have to be careful with. But so this could be a squat wave. This could be, some sort of Olympic style weightlifting wave, although I wouldn't probably do 5 reps, but 75, 80, 85, you could RPE this, right? However you want to prescribe the intensity. And then you drop back down so you hit 85 at the top, come back down a step to 80, and then build back up to 90. Okay. That's just a nice way. Now you could drop even, a little bit further at 82 and a half, at 77 and a half, and then build back up to 87 and a half, or take bigger leaps or bigger drop initially. So you could come down here and go all the way back down to 75 and then jump back up, to a much higher percentage, whether that's 82 and a half or 85 even. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. One's a little bit smoother of a wave though. Okay. Again, what's the point? Well, this could be engagement, volume accumulation at load. So, I mean, look at all the percentages in the 80s here, which I believe is where we're making a lot of money. So we're getting enough exposure to heavier loads, that there's enough volume as well, that we're getting enough neurological practice with this. And so this can be a great way to accumulate volume at a higher percentages, rather than flat load. And it also allows for, if you had a heavy set, to drop back a little bit. And essentially a drop set now is worked in before building back up to a higher percentage next time. Work sets and warm up, and I'll put in here post-activation potentiation, or if that's not, if we find out in the next few months, years, that maybe the post-activation potentiation, as we understand, it's not really what's going on, but post-activation performance enhancement. Well, the warm-up sets like an 80, can keep us warm and engaged. That 85 and 90 are easier. So this idea of some sort of potentiation going on, whether that's, again, a warm-up effect, whether that's actual post-activation potentiation. Not sure yet. I mean, I would have said post-activation potentiation in the past. We can stick with that for now, but there could be some active, post-activation potentiation going on. When you hit that 85, come down to 80, that 80 is going to be a lot faster of a set than it would have been without that 85 prior. Okay. And that could be just a perceptual issue too, is, hey, that load is lighter. It feels lighter. I can move it a lot better, after that heavier load. Okay. So don't discount that as well. So quality work, usually when the wave, that's what we're looking at. These aren't sloppy reps. These are really, really well done repetitions, not to failure. And that's one of the things I do want to mention. When you're waving, let me look how many sets here and how many repetitions you're accumulating. If you don't drop the repetitions enough on the drop set in particular, or you go to failure at any time during this wave build, right, you're going to start to accumulate fatigue, and that's going to make subsequent sets very, very difficult. So you notice that 85 at 2, the general guideline is 5 reps. Okay. 86 reps or so, even up to 8. And notice I'm hitting doubles here. Okay, so this is all about quality of movement, not accumulating fatigue, making sure as we're waving up and down when we move to that 90%, okay, we've accumulated all this fantastic volume along the way, but we haven't accumulated fatigue before we get to the money set, which is the top one. All right, so volume accumulation at load and its quality work. And I put a question mark here. You can auto-regulate this. All right, so you could say 75, 80, 85, come back to 80, up to 85, 1 to 2 reps, still feeling good, moving the bar really well, 90, hit 2 singles at the top, and you're like, well, let's keep going. I'm feeling great. Okay, so you drop back down to 85, go 90, 95. You might PR off a wave. Okay, you can just say, hey, you could send off on a wave and just say, look, I'm just going to wave up here and just see how far I get. Maybe 85 is as far as I get today. And man, that double or that triple, whatever I want to hit here, is feeling awful. I might try to hit the drop set and the wave is done. I'm not going to try to wave back up to 90 because I'm not feeling it today. So that's, if we look at Olympic style weightlifting, this could be really handy. This type of formatting, again, it keeps the athletes engaged, keeps the loads. If there is post-activation potentiation or post-activation performance enhancement occurring between heavier and lighter loads, but it allows them to push, say, hit the heaviest rep for the day by using a wave. Now, if we look at our motor unit recruitment, right? So this is more of a strength type of activity, dynamic and strength type of activity. So, hit that 80%. We're working up not to failure. So maybe 2 in the tank here, right? And then we go up to 85, a little bit more, and then back to 80, then 85, then 90. We're getting higher up. What I'm drawing here is we're climbing the size principle, Henneman size principle of motor unit recruitment, right? And so, we're moving up and down in these higher levels, these higher threshold motor units, still, of course, accumulating these lower ones as well. But, we're moving back and forth. So try not to fatigue these high frequency motor units, right? As I mentioned before, not going to failure here, because then we try to go up to a higher percentage. Some of these motor units are going to be knocked out. Now you can't lift anything that's heavier. And so if the potentiation effect does indeed happen, that's a phenomenon that can drive a successful wave. That's one of the reasons to do it. So again, in summary, why I do a wave, I'm not saying this is the only way to do this either. You can auto-regulate it. Volume accumulation at load, it's a great way to run through a lot of higher percentages in particular, and feel engaged with the extra movement instead of just grinding out, 4 reps at 90. You could, wave around even above 90. So your average percentage of work is at 90, but you waved around it. Okay. You might hit a higher rep. It could be a chance to PR. Okay. So this could be fine for a daily PR or an all-time PR perhaps. There could be a potentiation effect of some sort, going to these higher percentages, dropping down, seeing the bar move really, really well, and that promotes quality work. And that's the whole point of a wave. Okay. I use personally, if you care, I use waves in Olympic style weightlifting. I've used it a little bit in squat work. I find though that I like other things for squatting, like the contrast set method I put up a video of last time. I like that a little bit better. That's essentially a kind of a controlled wave. So I'm not waving up to anything. It's just back and forth. I think that promotes good engagement. And those lighter sets, you do see some improvement in bar velocity, whether it's a perceptual issue or whether it's from post-activation potentiation or post-activation performance enhancement, whatever it is. Either way, you see a better bar movement. Okay. But with the Olympic style weightlifting, I do like this a little bit more just because you run through a spectrum of loads. And, we know Olympic style weightlifting is so much about timing, but it does wave does a nice job of getting to heavy percentages without accumulating a lot of fatigue and monotony, right? Those type of lifts. So that's when I do use it mostly. Doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean that you couldn't use it in other things, a bench, whatever. That's just when I typically use it the most. So take that for what it's worth. All right, that's wave training, and I will see you in the next video.